Jane?
Yes?
What do you think she meant?
I don't know.
Have you remembered about that blue china cup or under the house? Mrs. White? Jane? What happened, Jane? Under the house.
She made me kiss her. She made me kiss her. Mama, please.
Evie? Come on, sugar, time to get your clothes on.
I'll be there in a minute, Mama.
Come on, Evie. Now, I don't want to come in there after you. You come on this minute. You hear? You got to kiss Grandma goodbye. Then you won't miss her so much. If you kiss her goodbye, sugar pie. You know that.
Don't make me. I don't want to. Oh, Papa.
Evie, darling. Evie, you do like your mommy says.
Come on now, you give it to me.
You got to, honey.
Now, baby, I know, sugar. All you got to do is kiss
Don't
her.
make
Please.
me, please.
Then you won't miss her so much.
Mama, I don't want
Now,
to.
you got to kiss her goodbye and you won't miss her so much.
Mama, I don't want to. Please, Mama. Please.
Come on,
Please, I don't want to.
Goodbye, 'cause
Don't
you won't miss
make
it
me.
so much.
Don't make me.
Welcome back. Doctors, I wanted to know if you had any thoughts about that particularly dramatic clip from The Three Faces of Eve.
She was having a lot of pain.
Yeah, okay.
I would key on your word dramatic, and there's a problem here with the fact that this stuff does appeal to dramatic, even sometimes prurient interest among the populace and the press. And I think both Janet and I would very much feel that therapy needs to be a private matter, and that one of the things that's happened with all of this is that the kind of the walls, the almost sacred walls of therapy are being breached again
Yes.
now by lawyers and the press and writers and so forth.
Well, in fact, even we've had a slate of celebrities coming forward.
Right.
We have a quotation, in fact, from one of them, Roseanne Barr, that I wanted to share with you briefly here. She says that when someone asks you, were you sexually abused as a child, there are only two answers. One of them is yes, and one of them is I don't know. You can't say no. Okay, and she's one of many who have felt that that in fact sexual abuse, sexual trauma is rampant, and that part of the reason that we're questioning, that we're using the term false memory syndrome, has to do with a cultural denial, that we're not wanting to look at the fact that this kind of trauma could take place.
I think we have to be very careful, though, in equating false memory with sexual abuse and child abuse, because we know that child abuse happens. We've got statistics, and it's a very different issue than saying that we've got false memories. We don't know what's happening yet with memory work. As I said before, it's not reproductive. I mean, we don't have our memories that are perfect. And I think this is really important, because it would be a disaster if, as a result of the false memory battles, that child abuse was no longer reportable, that children were not taken out of homes where they were being traumatized. This is a very different issue.
Okay. I'm glad you made that point, because in so much of the reading and research I did, it was the authors made the point, sexual abuse over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think, we are a crazy culture around sex. I mean, we are probably the world's most repressed and titillated culture. And there is a sense, sexual trauma is in a whole different category from other trauma. And you can traumatize kids in lots of ways, not just sexual ways. And there's almost a feeling like I have to remember something bad sexually that happened to me, even when I remember a lot of other things that happened to me that were terrible. And that, I think, leads people in the wrong direction.
Now, one of the questions I've had people ask is, if these kind of memories weren't true, I mean, why would anybody want to remember these kind of horrible experiences if they in fact weren't true? I mean, you know, part of what came up for me with that question had to do with, I think a lot of times we would very much like to have a concrete explanation. If I'm having some sort of vague symptoms, or my life isn't working, my relationships aren't working, I think a lot of times people, in my experience clinically, you know, want to come in and they'd like to have it all explained with one incident, or perhaps, you know, a quick label. Oh, well, this is what it is. And as difficult as that is, and as horrifying, it at least, I would guess, would be comforting for it to be an identified issue.
I think that's true. I think you can even go a little further. There's an unfortunate need in human beings for kind of a self-pity state.
Huh.
And this is a wide open door, you know, to self-pity, particularly, again, the more that this is sort of blown up in the media as this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. And there are movies about it and books about it, and everybody down the street is saying that they're part of it. That's an unfortunate side to human nature that really feeds into maybe saying things that didn't quite happen.
Okay.
I think there's another thing too, and that therapists have to really be very conscious of maintaining a neutral stance in their work with patients,
Okay.
so that they don't rev them up. Don't say, oh, you know, I just know that that's absolutely true, because this is very detrimental to the work that the patient is doing. So this therapeutic neutrality is essential. And we have to, you know, help therapists if they're having trouble with that. Maybe it means more education. Maybe it means impaired therapists having therapy themselves.
Okay.
But therapeutic neutrality is very important.
I think that's an excellent point, because I think in most fields, oftentimes therapists are attracted to areas for sometimes personal reasons. And I would imagine that if I had unresolved personal sexual history or personal trauma history, it would be tempting to see it in my clientele, even if it weren't there. So I think you bring up the role of the therapist very, very importantly. I'm glad you did that. I wanted to go to our next quote here on the screen from, again, Michael Yapko, who states that nothing gets into our memories from the outside that does not begin with perception through one or more of our physical senses of sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. And has to do with, we have to have, you know, is it true that we have to have some sort of experience for it to register at one of those levels? Now, you do hypnosis, I understand. Okay. Do you also do, by any chance, EMDR work?
Some.
Okay. And for our viewers, that's eye movement,
Desensitization and reprocessing.
reprocessing. Okay. And that's often done with trauma recall and trauma processing. Okay. In terms of hypnosis, have you ever had somebody come to you and say, I think something may have happened in my childhood, I don't know what it is, can you hypnotize me and find out?
I've had that happen, yes.
Okay. Does that work? Can people do that?
Well, people can get back memories, whether they're true memories. Again, we don't have that kind of knowledge.
Okay.
I think I would be very cautious in this day and age if someone came to me with that particular desire, because if they were interested in a law case, one of the things they would need to know that memories obtained in hypnosis are generally not admissible as evidence. So, as well as just sort of to enhance your memory about something, I'd be very cautious.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, the other part of it is that, I guess my feeling has always been that trauma is trauma. I mean, if a client comes in and says, I'm traumatized, and manifests certain symptoms, regardless of their origin, we do need to address them. I mean, we can't just say, well, that just isn't going on, you know.
No, I don't think anybody says that, but the difficult situation, which I don't think has been resolved, when someone comes in and says, I think this happened, and then what are you as a therapist going to do if it's a situation where you know, you may be called upon to make an intervention outside of the therapeutic situation. What if a woman says that her father molested her as a child, and now you know that this father has grandchildren?
Right.
What are you going to do? Are you going to call up and say, you know, I think this father may have molested his daughter, in which case you may blow up the family for generations?
That's an excellent point, that in fact it isn't just, you're talking about the privacy of the therapeutic relationship, but this particular issue is a family issue.
Right.
Because I know what happens for some people, even when it's not recommended by their therapist, decide, well, I'm going to go home and confront my family on this. And then you've got a split between siblings, between parents, and the whole family becomes devastated. And I think very often the client themselves is not prepared for that type of trauma. It's like the whole, and then what they're told or what they believe is, well, you know, maybe I should cut myself off from my family if they don't agree with me, because then they'll undermine my, the work I'm doing.
I think the other thing that I've seen happen, and you probably have too, where someone works through horrendous abuse and then returns to the area where their family lives and reestablishes relationships with the family, maybe gets into therapy even with some of the family.
Okay. So then in fact, even if we have this kind of recall, it does not necessarily mean that we will stay traumatized for the rest of our lives. I mean, the bottom line is that both sides of this controversy really do have at heart the healing of the clients. I want to thank you both for being with us today. This is a difficult topic, and you made it sound at least understandable to me anyway. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Be sure and return next week when we take a look at coping when grieving. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.